So now that we're familiar with the planets and the signs, it's time to learn some basic interpretation skills. How to combine the planets and the signs. Remember our analogy that the planets are actors and the signs are the roles that they play? Well, just like real actors, the planets are far more convincing in some roles than they are in others. The more a role fits an actor's type, the more compelling the actor's performance. Now, unlike actors, planets never lose themselves in their roles. Mars is always Mars, no matter what sign it's in or where it is in the chart. Take Sylvester Stallone for an example. Stallone is best known for his action hero roles, whether he's playing a boxer or a renegade soldier just, blowing things up. This is the type of role that best fits his image. He's the most comfortable and the most effective in these roles. To cast Sylvester Stallone as Hamlet, or even worse, in Romeo and Juliet as Juliet, would be a big mistake. All right, I admit, personally, I would buy a ticket to see Sylvester Stallone play Juliet, but that's beside the point. Most actors are lucky enough to only play roles that suit them and allow them to show off their strengths. The planets, on the other hand, aren't nearly as lucky. In astrology, there are 12 different roles. These are the 12 signs of the zodiac. And eventually, each planet has to step into each and every role, no matter how miserable they may be playing the part or how terribly miscast they may seem to be. We can evaluate how convincing a planet is in a given role by looking at that planet's essential dignity. Essential dignities are at the heart of classical astrology, but they're something that few modern astrologers understand. Thanks to the rediscovery of classical astrology techniques, modern astrologers can now begin to understand the nature and quality of the essential dignities and see how working with them makes interpreting planets in signs both easier and more accurate. The system of essential dignity we'll be using dates back to ancient Greece. In this system, there are 5 essential dignities: rulership, exaltation, triplicity, term, and face. And there are 2 essential debilities, detriment and fall. Only the inner planets have essential dignity. The outer planets don't figure into the dignity system. We're going to take a few minutes to go over a very brief introduction to the dignities and debilities. And then I'm going to teach you a technique that you can use right away that can identify key themes and questions in the natal chart. The first essential dignity is called rulership. When we talk about a planet in rulership, it's an evaluation of that planet's strength in that sign. It has nothing to do with how similar the energies of the planet and the sign seem to be. We're asking how convincing that actor is in that role. Well, a planet in a sign that it rules is playing its signature role. This is the role that turned that actor into a $30 million plus per picture A-list star. Planets in rulership set their own agenda. They can do whatever they want. Just like an A-list Hollywood star, no one is going to say no to a planet in rulership, no matter how stupid, self-centered, dangerous, or potentially destructive its ideas happen to be. On an esoteric level, planets in rulership operate on the level of pure being. Now, this is the highest plane of existence. A planet in rulership is the master of its own destiny. This is wonderful for the planet, but it's not always the easiest thing for the individual to handle. To give you an idea of how challenging planets in rulership can be, we don't get to start working with the planet in rulership on its own terms until after the age of 60. It takes 60 years for us to begin to master the energy of a planet in rulership. Planets in the sign of their exaltation are treated like honored guests. Things are done for them on their behalf by other planets. But no matter how pampered and comfortable planets in exaltation may be, they don't get to set their own agenda. They're bound by certain standards of acceptable behavior. In short, they're kept in check. Planets in exaltation are very strong, and in many ways, they're much easier to deal with than planets in rulership. As honored guests, planets in exaltation tend to be on their best behavior. They strive to be gracious, and they express their higher nature. On an esoteric level, planets in exaltation operate on what we would call the spirit or the soul level. The Greeks called it nous. It's where we connect with our higher selves and with our spiritual guides. We're able to access and experience planets in exaltation on this level from the ages of 45 to 60. Triplicity is a moderately strong essential dignity. It's not nearly as strong as exaltation or rulership, but a planet that has dignity by triplicity is still quite fortunate. In fact, fortune and luck are the best ways to describe triplicity. Planets with dignity by triplicity are lucky. They're in the right place at the right time, and things generally work out pretty well for them. Still, their strength comes more from their circumstances than from any inherent talent. Think of triplicity as an actor who comes off well in a performance because of strong direction, good production, outstanding material. In other words, an actor in a role that would be pretty difficult to screw up. Luck is a tricky thing, though, and it has a nasty habit of running out just when we start to rely on it. It's interesting to note that whether or not a planet has dignity by triplicity depends on the sect of the chart. One planet will have dignity if it's a diurnal or a day chart, and a different planet will have dignity if it's a nocturnal or a night chart. So whether or not the planet has triplicity, or luck, is entirely a matter of timing. A planet with dignity by term is one that makes a valiant effort at the part it's playing, but it's just out of its league. William Lilly described dignity by term as representing a planet that was in very declining fortunes. This is someone who was struggling to make ends meet, was probably only a short while from being turned out onto the street. Planets with dignity by term have an interest in the matter, but not enough strength, skill, or resources to have much influence over the outcome. Face is by far the weakest of the essential dignities. In fact, it's hardly a dignity at all. A planet that only has dignity by face has a great deal of anxiety about the situation. In fact, the key word for face is fear. The best thing that can be said about dignity by face is that it stops the planet from being peregrine, which means the planet has no essential dignity at all. A planet in the sign opposite the sign it rules is in the sign of its detriment. Planets in detriment are classified as being debilitated, but this doesn't mean the planets are weak. In fact, planets in detriment are actually very strong. However, they tend to use their strength in ways that get them in trouble. Planets in detriment are in poor condition because of their own actions and choices. A planet in detriment is like Sylvester Stallone playing Juliet because he insists that playing Juliet will be the best thing for his career. No one's going to tell him he can't do it, but this doesn't mean he's going to do well in the part. On an esoteric level, planets in detriment operate on the mental and emotional plane. They're the most prominent between the ages of 15 and 45. In practice, anytime you see a planet in detriment, think worry. Planets in detriment worry a lot about how to express themselves. A planet in the sign opposite of its exaltation is in the sign of its fall. Planets in fall are not quite as bad off as planets in detriment. Planets in fall are debilitated because they're in a place where they have no influence. It's sort of like being stranded in a foreign country where you don't speak the language and you don't understand the local customs. Planets in fall are debilitated through no fault of their own. A planet in fall would be like Sylvester Stallone playing Juliet because his agent got him into the contract and he can't get out of it. On an esoteric level, planets in fall operate on the physical plane and are most prominent from birth to the age of 15. When we're not able to express the energy of a planet in fall, it almost always shows up in the physical body. A planet that has no essential dignity is called peregrine, which means wandering. Peregrine planets have no affinity, no strength, no talent, and no resources. Peregrine planets are a bit unpredictable in their expression. They tend to take kind of a roundabout way of getting from point A to point B.